welcome back to the Be More recording, where we inspire you to be a little bit more of every role within the Salesforce ecosystem and beyond. For today's session, we are exploring what it takes to be more author. And I'm joined today by Joseph. So, Joseph, are you okay to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Thank you for having me today, Tom. Good morning, good evening, wherever y'all are listening today. My name is Joseph Kubon. I am a 41-time certified Salesforce solution and application system B2B architect on the ecosystem. I'm a 3-time MVP. As Tom alluded, I have authored a book already on ChatGPT and Salesforce development. I am working on my second book right now, which should drop in August of this year, just before Dreamforce on Einstein Studio. This is the current book, ChatGPT for Accelerating Salesforce Development. I've actually been in the ecosystem and used data and AI for a long time, back in my days at iHeartRadio and on some patents about data enrichment. So I'm an inventor, author, and really love the ecosystem, the opportunity to be a trailblazer and to help really elevate others in their roles.
So maybe if you could start for us with a breakdown of, I guess, the roles and responsibilities of an author as you see it from your firsthand experience.
Sure, thank you. So from that perspective, there are a couple different things. On book number one, I was an author and editor and proofreader, and there are several different aspects of that when you're assembling the book. There are things that you have to ensure are important in the delivery with tone and language and audience, and especially in writing a technical book, setting the stage for, are you writing this around the mindset that someone has 5 years experience in the ecosystem, they fit around, they're an admin, they understand configuration, are they an architect, have they done integration? And your language, your audience changes and the words that mean what they mean to them when they receive it. So being an author is not necessarily simply sitting down at a keyboard and typing a bunch of things. You're got to be cognizant of, what the editing looks like, what the final product looks like, what visuals you need. In order to be an author, you have a role as a researcher to make sure you've acquired the right information. You have to be objective as an author. You have to be able to be open to the idea of presenting both sides. You can't just sit down and write a blog and say, this is amazing. Yet prompt people to understand, well, what are the challenges? What are the obstacles? You're going to miss a wide area of the range of view around the perspective you want to bring. And that's going to go directly to your credibility as an author. If you're not willing to accept that there are aspects you can learn or be wrong about, then you're going to fail. People will discredit you and not be interested in what you have to say.
I've explored the book a little bit myself, and I like how it gives example prompts and kind of approaches things from kind of different roles and responsibilities, like per chapter. And I think it's kind of great to go through that and review it. And I can see what you're talking about when you say you have to approach these things subjectively, because I can see you doing that in the book as well. So I think that that's important too, because you want to be honest, truthful, and ultimately, if you don't, as you said, damages your reputation as an author, but also your own kind of personal brand as well, don't you think?
Yeah, correct, for sure.
Moving on a little bit to the next question. Your role as an author, in the case of this book, you were a co-author, right? So how did that work in terms of keeping in touch with your other co-authors and making sure that you were kind of creating a coherent thing?
there was a project manager for the book amongst the authors.
Mm.
That's how we arrived at Andy's name should go first. And he was the project manager. I'm the project manager on the next book. And I'm learning as well, like corralling the authors, getting them to meet their deadlines, publishing the schedule. We have a Google chat where we can all exchange ideas. We have a Google Drive where all of the
Mm.
books all of the material is to be published. Like everything is like transparently. It's down to like I have a very like A-type personality, and believe it or not, it was driving me crazy that everybody would do a thumbs up emoji on a message. So I got to the point where like everybody has to pick an emoji. And that way I can scan the emojis or scan the messages and be like, if I see the unicorn, then I know this author has read my message. If I don't
Mm.
see an elephant, then I know that I have to follow back up.
Mm.
Everybody was responsible to read the book from front to cover. We were
Yeah.
responsible for all of the edits on our chapter or comments. If we had any one of the technical reviewers or editors that have put a comment on our chapter, we were responsible for that. The time to getting the book into the market was the priority. And the only way to accomplish that was to divide it up and realize
Yeah.
that we had to collaborate and partner on. I've just recently also created a brand new podcast called Salesforce Bookshelf, and I partnered with Shalyn, and we are aligned on our mission. And we
Mm.
divided our roles and found a way that we're going to sync and work together. And it's just like any other delivery or implementation project. If you have alignment with your co-authors on the objective of the book and getting there, then it feels pretty smooth.
Sounds quite interesting, the Salesforce bookshelf, so I'll have to check that out myself at some point. So, thinking about this now as somebody that does this amongst other things in the community, as well as working full time, in simple terms, like, how do you fit everything in?
I'm married to a teacher, and my children are full grown.
Mm.
My daughter's an adult, works, college graduate. My son's still off at college. During the school year, my wife's grading papers, and so I have to share her with her 160 students and her profession. And so I could be in front of the television killing brain cells,
Yeah.
or I could be enriching my learning and enriching. Um, Part of it is the prioritization and things that I find rewarding, and the Salesforce ecosystem and platform and Trailhead and the value construct, the give back, the 1% give back of your time. I just embraced it, and it has enriched my life beyond my wildest imagination.
Mm.
I just, I'm very blessed. I've been around the world. I've been on 4 continents. I've seen 20 countries, cultures, all because I had this opportunity with Salesforce. And it pains me or hurts me to see, you know, poor people on the street, or I try to give back that way, but I read stories in Facebook groups of, hey, I'm a single mom. I'm getting divorced. I have 2 kids. My life's being reset. I can no longer afford to be a personal trainer. I need a new career.
Uh,
So I reached out to Brittany and I'm like, I will help you. I
yeah.
will make time for you every week, coach and mentor you. And it's the same. It's like that we have an obligation to lift people up with us. And that's the motivation. That's
Yeah.
the real passion behind it. I'm not getting rich off of the book. For $500 to
Uh,
write the book.
yeah.
But, I don't get anything for being a trailblazer or an MVP, and I get swag, right? I get swag and free passage reinforcement. Really, it's
Mm.
about helping people and
Yeah.
lifting them up and elevating them. And that's what motivates you to find the time to prioritize that sort of piece of your life of what's important. Everybody has multiple roles in their life in the ecosystem. You know, your job. You're me. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I go to church. I'm a member of my parish. I live in my community. I work at Astound Digital.
Mm,
All of those things, and you have to be present in how you show up for other people. That's part of your genuine, authentic self. And that's why, make time for those pieces. Even like the authoring comes easy. Anything gets easier with practice. The more you do it, the easier it is. I wish I published more blogs, but I'm
mm,
not. But it's how you prioritize and what motivates you to get that done.
yeah, exactly. And listening to that, I can relate to some of that myself. Like sometimes people ask me the same question, like how do I fit everything in? And it's about helping people, but reaching the most people and also potentially reaching different people by changing it up as well. I think that's
Yeah,
super
you're
important.
spot on. All of the different mediums or channels.
Thinking about this as somebody's listening and perhaps they're considering producing Salesforce content, maybe a book like you as well. What tips, advice would you give that person?
The very first thing I would say is focus on the area you feel you have the ability to make the most impact or provide the most reliable guidance. Don't try to spread yourself too thin. Don't
Yeah.
think like you'll see like with some of the most successful authors are focused in a specific space like Lowe's or
Mm,
AI or security, and they're not bouncing around. You you have to refine a specific area of interest and leverage that as sort of what will be known as your wheelhouse.
yeah.
The next piece is start small. I woke up one day and said I want to be a speaker. I want
Mm,
to talk to people about my topic. And I created a presentation and like, how can I talk about this? How can I get involved? And then I started doing presentations, right?
yeah.
It's that evolution. And then you start doing presentations at conferences. And then, before you know it, you're like, okay, like, hey, I just finished this presentation at Dreamforce. I know a lot about this. Let's write a book on it. You need to feel um, successful and impact, but it's from an inspirational perspective to those people, right? If your first idea, your first blog, your first presentation is the first pedal,
Mm,
you drop enough pedals, you're going to eventually have enough ripples that move a boat. Reach out to a community group leader because they're begging for content.
yeah.
Find your local community group leader and say, can I be the presenter at your meeting in August?
Yeah.
And you're going to be on your way. It's iterative, just like your development, right? It's about time to value. How are you? Like the whole philosophy of that from architecture and delivery on a project is the same way you would approach, this endeavor. You know, what you build first to get there and get going, and then how you get it. But people who wake up on that sound, people who wake up one day with no, it's like I'm gonna write a book. Like 9 months later, they're still writing the book. You have to get that momentum.
As an architect, like you know a lot of things about a lot of different things, right? So it's kind of hard to find your space and find, I guess, something to specialize in when you kind of have that broad approach across everything. Do you agree?
I do. So from an architect is that's necessary for the architect to
Mm,
have that broad spectrum.
yeah, exactly.
I think that there's some sort of like I was talking about a depth and breadth with someone, and they talked to me about yeah they heard the concept before about the T and how deep you can go versus how broad you can go. But I think that ultimately though, when you're publishing or creating content, you need to be focused on that depth within,
Yeah.
even as an architect, you have to be focused on that depth. John Grisham, he writes crime novels. Stephen King writes for they write a particular genre because they're
Mm,
good at it. They're good at crafting and curating that story with the same cast of characters and the same general kind of thing. And that's true of, the technical aspect as well. Like look at Cheryl Feldman, right? Everybody knows her as the security and clinician sets product manager
uh,
at Salesforce now, right? But that's long since been her expertise, and she landed there and trapped and recruited into that role, and the way she curates and engages with the community all
yeah.
comes from the fact that she had been part of the community. The same way with Jen Lee, right?
Yeah.
And the automation owl. Like so, Jen is a brilliant person, brilliant architect, but she still found one niche and
Uh-huh.
capitalized on that niche.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. But an architect does have to have that breadth
Yeah.
of knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. And yeah, I can certainly see how certain people within the ecosystem, including Cheryl, have rose up over time. And when I was studying for some of my system architect certs, she was on the recordings as part of Ladies Be Architects. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt honored to just be watching her in action, or as part of
Yeah.
a group of other people that were once learning what I was now learning, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
They're,
that's great.
but they're there, the ladies, the architects videos and the
Yeah.
rad women, and they're all, you know, focused on helping the community and aspects of the community and the underrepresented, one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And that's an obligation of any leader or any trailblazer.
Mm. Yeah, totally. Okay. So, thinking about it now as somebody that's kind of been on the journey as an author, and I appreciate hindsight is a double-edged sword, right? It's a wonderful
Yeah.
thing, but also perhaps not something that people enjoy thinking about. But if you were to have the opportunity to change or do something differently, kind of over again, is there anything you would adjust?
Yeah. So I think there are things there are things that are adjusting
Mm,
relative to how we're doing it this
this
time
time
around
around.
and whatnot. There are things like you know we have a great partnership with Packet, and they're very supportive, and they have the resources to help get the book out. There's marketing opportunities for them and the efforts there, but there was a lot we had to do ourselves with finding podcasts, finding
Mm,
technical architects, getting people to review the book and put the book up LinkedIn
yeah,
and show themselves with the book. Right? I reach out to you, Tom.
yeah,
Would you want to read the book in advance?
yeah,
Right? All of that is important or critical. We started that process way, 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 way too, way
yeah.
too late. So people like, maybe after we record today, I'll get you keyed into what's happening for August. Hey, we're pooling some of those of people to evangelize the next book now,
Mm,
getting them ramped up and involved in the process and advanced copies and what's coming. So that when we hit the ground running on August 23rd, when the second book drops, there's massive wave of promotional posts from other people
Yeah.
who have the breadth and reach and an audience that you need.
I think it's great, right? Because it shows that you're willing to learn and you're taking those
Yeah.
lessons and adapting. So I think that is a really kind of important aspect of what you're sharing with us. So
Yeah.
thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thinking about this now as maybe as an author, what skills or attributes do you have to be, you think, a successful author?
You have to know how to tell a story and be
Yeah.
engaging. You have to know how to cultivate an audience and draw them in. Um, you need to know how to keep them wanting more. Um, you can't fake passion. That's not, that's
Mhm.
not, you can't teach it either.
Mm.
You can almost think to yourself that very broad, maybe somewhat. You can teach anybody Salesforce, right? But feel like, hey, I'm going to give you an assignment. Go do these trailheads. You'll learn.
Yeah.
You'll eventually pass. You'll eventually get a certification. That's the that's the acquisition of knowledge, right? Trailhead is the acquisition of knowledge. Going and doing that then is experience, right?
Mm.
The production of a book is knowledge plus experience equals book, right? What can I do
Mm.
better next time? You know that that's being open minded around you may not be right. You have to realize you're going to make mistakes. Like there are probably mistakes in the book. Like, there are. One has been found. We have received at least one email from someone
Yeah.
who found a mistake in the book. And, you know, we're not perfect, but you have to be creative. You have to be engaging. You have to be authentic. You know, that's how
Yeah.
those are the successful authors in any genre, technical fiction.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that is quite close to my heart and something that I believe in as well. Feedback is a gift. Embrace it.
yeah,
It's not there to trip you up or catch you out. It's there to help. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're right. It is. I would say feedback is a gift, and I would enrich or say, and with that, I learned from a person who I probably would put in like the top 5 most influential people for me professionally. Her name is Barbara Green.
Hmm.
She's an executive coach here in San Antonio. I had the opportunity to. People do say feedback. You have to think about it from the perspective of feed forward. Like
Yeah.
they're looking to how do I enhance or change or what I would do different next time.
Now you have a brief opportunity to debust a myth or clarify kind of a common misconception about authors that kind of write about Salesforce related subjects. So, is there anything that kind of comes to mind that you'd like to clarify or kind of demyth for our audience about being an author in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. It's not just for architects. It's not just for the advanced people.
Mm.
Every person has that opportunity. Admins have the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's wide open. Your voice is a gift, and you should take the opportunity to speak up and hope it gets amplified. Find people and get it amplified. All of us were beginners,
Mm.
and you can start your journey when you're ready on your tongue.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, I can't write a book until I've earned 25 certifications. I can't do a video series on YouTube until I've, been it around for 12 years.
I think something that I take away from that is the only person stopping you is yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
And totally appreciate like the using it as an opportunity to learn about new things, um, and be open and honest about that learning experience as well. Like there's some pieces of content that I was asked to write that I kind of bundled together as a learning experience. So I was researching, learning about it, and writing about it at the same time. So it's a great opportunity, at least in my mind, to have an excuse to learn something new,
yeah.
and kind of go on that journey along with your audience, right?
Those of us who have been around in the ecosystem and are looking to like what's the it would seem crazy that there's the next generation already, but that next generation of admins and authors was an idea I had about a while back. I was on a show with Trailhead about the admins of tomorrow, and
Mm,
eventually, um, tomorrow is here, and that next one
yeah,
is here. And I, as an architect, in a delivery role, I don't have a lot of time to be hands-on with stuff, not as much
yeah,
as I'd like. But I have to learn from the people who are. I have to rely on those people. But we all have that give and take. So if
yeah,
you're brand new, there's room here for you to
yeah,
go ahead and take your idea and contribute. There are going to be people that, I haven't thought of that, you know, and you can have impact. One person, 10 people, 100 people today, 1,000 people tomorrow, 10,000 people next year.
mm,
You'll build that audience, you'll build that following. Every journey starts with one step.
yeah, exactly. I think that's great, sound advice there. And thinking about it as perhaps somebody that's listening to this and trying to figure out where to get started, at least in my mind, a great way to get started is, as you kind of already said, reach out to your local CGL or community group leader and perhaps use that as a platform to build your confidence in
Yeah,
not only public speaking, but sharing your ideas and your experiences as well, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Everybody's got, got that egg somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. Well, we are wrapping up today's session, but before we
Right.
do go, what's a way for people to connect with you and how can people find out more about your content and your books?
Yeah, so the easiest two places to find me are LinkedIn and X,
Yeah.
known as Twitter.
Yeah.
It's Joseph Kubon on LinkedIn. It's S-Force Rocker on on Twitter, but you can find me on either space and connect with me there. Send me a message, and I'll respond.
Thanks again.
You're welcome. Have a great day.